out here today on the Bellwin Conservancy, just a little east of the Twin Cities. Probably a really well-kept secret for some people, but knowing the importance of the ecology of prairie and the need to have the bison, can you tell me a little bit about the deal you have with another operation to provide the bison here and how that plays into your management system specifically?
Yeah. So we have these bison here through a partnership with North Star Bison. They are a production farm in Rice Lake, Wisconsin. We agreed that they would bring bison here. We don't charge them for the grass, and they don't charge us for the bison.
That's a good deal. That's a real good deal. Yeah.
It's a great deal for us because the bison are the best prairie restoration specialists we could hire. The free-range grazing that they do creates exactly the right mix of grasses and forbs that we want to see on our prairie. So we see the 50-50 balance of seed bank in the grasses and the forbs. And then they are part of the agricultural system too. So we're proud to be part of that and to have bison hosted here and then to have them go into the production system as well.
Part of a local food system.
Exactly.
You can't beat locally grown, that's for sure. Soil health is a big deal for NRCS. It's become a big deal nationwide, and it plays into carbon sequestration, but specifically prairies. As an ecologist, we typically understand that you can't really get where you need to be with a prairie restoration without the cycle of life. And bison being what naturally was here, are you giving any thought about that playing into your restoration process, the manure process, the disturbance, more than just eating the plants, but that's a big piece as far as the ecology here, right?
It really is, yeah. And the bison do a couple things that really helps the soils. The manure being here is nutrients back into the soil. They also, just by walking, their hooves are kind of pushing into the soil and aerating that soil, another important thing. And then you'll see out here wallows as well. So depressions they look like kind of a dirt hole, but it's a depression where all of the bison will roll one by one by one. That compresses the soil and creates, when we have a rain event, it creates this oasis of a puddle that is so good for the other wildlife around too. I've been told, and this is just fascinating to me, that they actually have enzymes in their saliva that get down into the soil and help the plants grow and everything too. So I'm fascinated by everything that they do for this prairie, but the soil health is a big part of that too.
Could you tell me a little bit about, bison are selective, all animals are selective, all ungulates are selective, and their selectivity of plants and the composition you're after here and how they help with that.
Yeah. The bison primarily eat the grasses, and the predominant grasses of the prairie, the big blue stem, the Indian grass, switchgrass, they prefer those over the forbs. And in our other prairie restoration sites, we have trouble getting that right balance. We have more grass than we would like to see in a healthy prairie ecosystem. Here, because they're so selective, they're very picky eaters. And because of that, we see that right balance. Yeah.
That's what we used to call in the range profession ice cream plants. And
excellent.
They go after the ice cream first, and then
yes.
they go after the post toasties later.
Yeah, a bison's really intelligent in its diet. It knows what it wants and knows how to go find it. It tends to prefer big blue stem, and we can clearly see that. The big blue is eaten dominantly, but as soon as their gut feels different, they will actually go look for something else. So they really don't just eat themselves out of house and home. It's a continual graze. They're fun to watch, actually. They line up, and when we give tours, it's always a big line of butts, and they're just grazing along as they go, unlike cattle and things that will just stay in one spot till it's gone, then move, and then move, and then move, which is why our free range works so well, because they continually use this whole 150 acres. They're bedding here apparently for the evening, but by morning, I promise you, they'll be in the other corner. By noon, they'll be at the water, then they'll be in another corner. And so they're constantly over this whole area, spreading the pressure out over the whole thing, which allows us to have as many as we do and helps the prairie thrive the way it's supposed to. The symbiosis between the bison and the native grasses is incredible. This is our bison buggy. This is a custom-built one-off machine. It's almost as much of an attraction as the bison. In non-COVID times, every third Saturday in the summer, we would give free rides. You essentially would board at the tower and come on out here, see them, and go back. Those are fun. The public lines up for those. Usually they're at capacity for the entire length of time. It's open to the public all during the day, essentially dawn to dusk. It's inherently dangerous to be around a wild animal, and I can't stress enough that these animals behind us are wild animals. They're bison, they're 2 years old, they're all male. All these factors lead into how I understand the herd and how I manage them. Since they're all 2 years old, they haven't matured yet. So they don't know what they're doing, in other words. There are no females here for them to try to fight for or protect. It's safe. Under very careful observations, we can be out here and do this sort of thing, and we like to show people that you shouldn't be afraid of bison, you need to respect bison. Stay away from them, give them plenty of space, watch them from a distance, and you'll always be fine.
What are some of the wildlife species that you kind of manage for on the place?
We like to manage for the whole habitat rather than a specific species. But we do pay attention to what is here and to what we can manage for. So we see a lot of bird life here. In the spring we see bobolinks nesting here. We have Henslow's sparrows, which are a threatened species, nesting on our property. We just this spring moved our kestrel boxes to a more desirable spot apparently to the kestrels because they nested and we had fledgling kestrels. And
that's good.
Yeah.
I love kestrels. So that's a good thing.
They're really great. So a lot of bird life. And then we also we have researchers who are doing work on Blanding's turtles out here too. So we're looking at the reptile and amphibian life as well, and in particular Blanding's turtles. And that's actually been one of the things that is related to the NRCS contracts too, the wildlife friendly fencing. We took out a whole lot of fencing that was a real big problem for the Blanding's turtles. They would get caught in that fencing, and we actually have them nesting on our property too.
I think that teaches us a lot, that you can have a productive operation, whether it's bison or beef cattle or sheep, and still blend that very well with the natural ecology and just make some adjustments, whether it's your fencing or your water or your grazing scheme. It all evolved together, so there's no reason why they can't be very compatible on an operation like this.
So we've had a couple contracts with NRCS, and a big one has been the grazing contract. So free-range grazing these bison on this area has had a huge impact on the biodiversity of the prairie. It's been a great restoration tool for us, and it's also been really actually a great tool to educate people about our conservation work too, because the bison bring in the crowds. They want to see bison. They're really fun. So it's kind of had a twofold benefit for us. We've been working with wildlife-friendly fencing through NRCS contracts, pollinator areas as well. We have a prairie nearby where we've done a lot of work to make sure that we have a good mix of plants for the pollinators, and then also some forest opening contracts too. So we've had a few different things that NRCS has helped us with, and we're so grateful. We work with Michelle Wohlers, our district conservationist, and at this point into the contracts, we've been meeting with her each year to go over progress and the monitoring that we do related to it. It's been a great partnership in our view because we've been able to work on our wildlife-friendly fencing and make sure that we're not impeding the wildlife on our land. We've been able to create better pollinator habitat because of the contracts with NRCS. And we've been able to enact this grazing program with the bison here, which is a huge benefit to Bellwin Conservancy, to our land, and to our habitat. And we've also been able to do a little bit of forest work too. So it's been extremely beneficial to Bellwin. We own and manage 1,500 acres of land, and every dollar that goes into that is really important so that we can keep it healthy and we can maintain it into perpetuity.
I was told that maybe some prescribed burning is part of the operation. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we burn all of our prairie restoration areas on an intermittent cycle. So we try to look at what the land and the vegetation is telling us about what it needs. We know what plants are going to be set back by a spring fire versus a fall fire. And if we have too many of those invasives in that area, we will plan a spring burn or a fall burn based on that. We don't see the need for burning this area as much because we have the bison on it. There's not as much of a need as in some of our other areas to burn more frequently. So.
My experience out here has been wherever I burn that spring tends to exclude the bison. They tend to stay out of it. They really like last year's growth and the new stuff coming through last year's growth. And then it's usually late summer before they start actually even going in the burn area, which is why we pulled way back on our burn rotation, because we found out that half of our pasture wasn't being used anymore. We were burning this in quadrants, almost 6 quadrants in 150 acres, you know, really for pollinators, for birds, for all those things. And when we looked at it and said, this just isn't working, it's not cost effective, 1, 2, it's just not producing the results we want, I went to a 50-50 on a very low frequency, and I really cannot see anymore the fire unit versus the non-burn unit. You really can't tell. Other than I know where the line is, it's almost impossible by the end of summer to see which one was which.
I think that's an important topic in today's world. We've seen all the wildfires out west and just west of here. There's always, and north in the timber country, there's always a potential that could hit Minnesota too. All it takes is a dry spell and a mistake with fire. But fire prescription, which is what you're doing, is something I think the public needs to understand, that you can manage fire as a tool, and that you don't have to burn everything every year, or at the same time you're actually prescribing a fire that gets to where your target goals are for this operation, and whether it be wildlife habitat or forage benefit for the bison or pollinator habitat. And I really like to hear when people talk about not just spring fires, because a lot of us grew up with you burn almost every spring, you burn everything, but that's not necessarily how the prairie came about, because whether it be Native Americans doing prescribed burns of their own kind or just nature taking its course, there was a random selection type thing with fire. And I think you would say you're after a mosaic out here.
We really are, yeah. And so this area that we're in right now is about 150 acres. We typically would not burn all of that at once, because we want the wildlife to have the respite in one area while we burn another area, and to have that patchwork and that diversity of stages in the same area too, so that the prairie can
do its
come
thing.
back and do its thing. Exactly.
Yep. I've always said we're borrowing. We're just borrowing our place in space right now, only to leave something better to someone else. And I think more than ever that connectivity to the land is imperative to our society, and I'm glad to hear that you're doing something about that.
Thank you.